Welcome to the Equipping Leaders podcast. I'm Natasha, and my goal is to equip leaders with tools to make their leadership journey easier and more expansive. Today, I'm continuing the topic of what to do when feedback goes wrong. So, a common response to feedback is doubling down on certain efforts in an attempt to, quote unquote, prove you wrong. So, we know this isn't effective because, like we previously shared with the person, this isn't something to be defended. When a person goes about accepting feedback this way, you could do a couple of things. First, you would definitely want to put a halt to that. And the biggest reason why I say that is because even if the behavior itself doesn't seem to be negatively impacting anything or anyone else, that mindset and that behavior is going to burn that person out. They're going to keep adding tasks in this attempt to prove something, and those tasks are going nowhere. We want to definitely halt that so that they don't overtask themselves and burn themselves out on things that likely could just be adjusted. So remind them that the feedback is information to let them know that something was or was not working, not something for them to use to make more work for themselves or anyone else. Another way this can show up is that their attempts to prove themselves puts additional burden on you or other members of the team. So in this case, you'll need to go back in with feedback and let them know that this is not acceptable. I mentioned in a previous episode that before we leave the feedback conversation, we want to make sure that there's a plan in place that empowers the other person to make meaningful progress with the feedback they were given. Right. And this is a point where you could come back to that place and say, re-engage with that plan. The opposite response to doubling down, or a similar response, I should say, is becoming disengaged at work. So obviously, we don't want this to happen. So this is where you can re-engage with them at your next touch base as to that plan you decided on. You can't expect meaningful progress within a single day. So sometimes it's just a matter of giving them a little space so they can fully process the feedback. Everyone processes in their own way on their own timeline. This is not a reason to never fully process feedback and move forward. But remember that some folks can process in the moment while others need a few days. You can even make it part of your plan moving forward after feedback is given that you'll carve out 10 minutes in your next touch base if they want to circle back on any of the feedback. Another response to feedback can be surprise. And in general, people shouldn't be surprised by feedback because you're giving them consistent feedback. However, some people are still surprised by the feedback, even if you have been giving them the same information over and over. There are three common reasons why people are surprised by this. One is that you didn't use the word feedback, so maybe they don't know that you're giving them feedback. And I know that sounds very elementary, but sometimes people just need to hear that word to have it kind of set in their brain that, oh, this is feedback, something to take action on. They may think that that conversation is just a regular conversation, right? So you want to make sure that you mention that it's feedback. And I know that feels so formal to say, but just the statement, I'm going to give you some feedback. Some people may need that, and it's better to default to just telling people that feedback is occurring. Another reason people are surprised by feedback is because they're confused by the compliment sandwich that's often used to give feedback. They heard two good things and one area of improvement, so they mentally cancel out that area of improvement and only heard the good stuff. It can be more effective for you if you just give the area of improvement so the person can focus on that, and then you come up with a plan for improvement. Just because you're giving someone constructive feedback doesn't mean they don't have other strengths. It just means that this is an area that they need to improve on, and you could just mention that. Right? Say, I know you have a lot of other strengths. This is an area that we can work on to make better, that we can improve. And like I'd also mentioned previously, sometimes when we're giving feedback, the feedback is also really positive. So that's that time where you are really showing them that balance of complimenting and really engaging on why some things are so great. So that then when it comes to these things, it's like they're just not at that same level. So how do we fix that together? And then the third reason why people are surprised by feedback is because they're just in denial about their performance. There's actually very little that you can do in this case. No matter how many times you use the word feedback or give the same feedback, they are always going to be surprised. So, if after all of this, all the things you've done as a leader to try to help them accept that feedback. The feedback isn't changing. They're not able to adapt. It could be time for a role change or actions to performance manage someone out of your organization, especially if they are not taking feedback about their performance and role. Now, I know that may sound aggressive, but if they don't fit, then it's not good for them, and it's certainly not good for you or your company. Not everyone has to stay with your team, and it doesn't mean that you have failed in any way as a leader. Thanks for listening.